Hey everyone, so Kingdom Death Simulator's been out for a couple of weeks now, and it's also had a couple of patches already. So I want to talk to you a bit about what those patches have involved, and also what you can expect if you get yourself a key for the simulator in the future. So first of all, since I mentioned in a comment somewhere that I would show some footage of this, when you're playing in multiplayer with multiple people in the same dwelling, this is what it looks like. Basically, it's kind of like Tabletop Simulator or something like that. You can see their cursor, and that's how you can see what they're looking at or interacting with. And everything basically just works exactly like single player does. It's pretty smooth. I didn't have any problems with connectivity or synchronicity between the two of us. And there's no visual representation of you in the space. So there's no like avatar or anything like that. The only limitation that I think you have when you're in someone else's room is that you're not allowed to go out into the hallway. So you can only interact within the gaming room. Okay, so next I'd like to talk about patches. Something that I noticed in this launcher when it first came out was that there had already been a couple of patches leading up to this that have dates on them. I'm not going to go through every note, but I do want to at least capture them in this video for kind of historicity reasons, because I think this will be interesting to look back on in the future, maybe when the simulator is more advanced. But yeah, you can see this one here came out on the 15th of November, this one on the 21st, and then this one on the 24th, which I seem to remember is around the time that the launcher was released. And there's been two patches since then. So I want to show you a bit of footage of what the patch notes are referring to, because I think most of the things that have been fixed in the subsequent patches after this one, I managed to capture on camera. And yeah, I want to show you some of them. Some of them are kind of funny and a lot easier to laugh at now that they've been very quickly fixed. And yeah, I want to continue making videos like this for every patch that comes out, because I'm always very interested in seeing what changes and what they've been able to fix. So with that said, let's talk about this patch here. So as you can see, patch 105, 0.1.105 came out shortly after release, and it has like one cryptic release note here saying, "We found it, you are safe now." And what I think this is referring to is, for the first couple of days after release, there were some hiccups with connecting to the Kingdom Death Simulator servers, and there was maybe 1 or 2 mornings or evenings where I wasn't able to connect, and I suspect that this is referring to that, because I haven't had any problems connecting or playing by myself or with friends since then. Moving on to patch 0.1.106, a lot of the things that I found are kind of referenced in this set of patch notes. So I'm going to go through and talk about each one. So all dwellings were reset. So something that was clear in the first version and subsequent small patch was that when you do the reset house option, or the reset my dwelling option on the main menu, or I think you can do it in game as well, it's meant to clean up everything in the room and either put it back in the box or archive it and basically reset it to a similar state as when you first log in and walk into your dwelling. But there was something not quite working right with that, and it would sometimes end up that things didn't end up in the right place. And so they've added an option similar to what this patch note is saying, to completely reset your dwelling, which actually sets it back to kind of factory defaults, if you like. There's like nothing in the room that isn't there when you first walk in. So as well as this, I don't know if it's mentioned later, but oh yeah, here it is, added the option to completely reset a room from the main menu. So that's a nice addition. Sometimes things get a bit stuck, and it's good to be able, or you've just, lost your campaign or whatever, and you just want to restart from the beginning. And so adding that option was cool. It also reset everyone's dwellings, whether they wanted to or not, though. So something that's worth knowing at this early stage in development is that sometimes your dwellings will just be reset because a patch has to reset them for maintenance purposes. So you can't really rely on the kind of integrity of your campaign just yet. I think you will be able to very soon, though, for reasons that I'm going to explain shortly. Major efforts at fixing vanishing decks and cards. So this is something that I've got some footage of that I might be able to put on the screen as I'm talking about this. Sometimes cards can get into a sort of weird state where they're technically, in a sense, in your hand, in your sort of virtual hand as you're picking them up, but you can't see them, and they don't animate properly, and they don't prevent you from picking up other things, so they can kind of be overwritten in your hand, if you like. And that's the most common situation I found where cards would just completely vanish and be gone, is when you pick one up and it's in this sort of strange ghost state, I like to call it, and then you pick up another card and it overwrites it. So major efforts at fixing those. I don't think that this is completely fixed. There is still one certain eventuality that can cause cards to disappear that I'll talk about later on. But I'm pretty confident that that will be fixed soon, because the vast majority of situations that were causing this have been fixed in this patch. And I've played for a few hours on this patch now to verify that. Next, fixed issues with item archiving. There's some problems with the archive, which is kind of a big chest in the room that you can archive items to. And in the real life Kingdom Death board game, archiving means kind of putting it back in the box in a way, or putting it in a place where it's no longer in play. And the storage chest in the dwelling functions kind of as that, but has some issues where, for example, stuff ends up in there by accident when it shouldn't. And so it's a little bit inconsistent, but it does seem much better on this patch, and I think is close to being completely fixed. Bearing in mind we're on a 0.1 sub-release, everything in here is kind of nailing down stability issues that are really the only problems getting in the way of being able to play the simulator fully. It's very, very close to being completely, playable as a campaign without any problems. So I'm really optimistic about that. And I think that if you bought a regular key, non-master dwelling key, there's, in my mind, a good chance that by the time you have access, it will be pretty much completely stable without any bugs that cause any real serious problems. So that's really exciting to see, only a matter of a couple of weeks after the initial release. Moving on. Fixed issues preventing players from resetting the game rooms from the main menu. I kind of touched on that already, and I talked about this. Removed the ability to leave the table with the escape key. Leaving the table is now possible from the in-game menu when seated. I'm sure I'll have a pretty stupid set of clips to play on the screen while I'm talking about this. So I'm not surprised that this was changed, because it's kind of instinctive to mash the escape key to get out of whatever menu you're in, or things like that if you're playing a game on a PC or a Mac. It was very easy to just accidentally stand up, and so I would just very frequently, especially when I was doing something important and I was really like tunnel visioning in on what I was doing, I would mash the escape key, because it's like, okay, I've checked this rulebook page, I want to roll some dice and see what happens. I would just really in a way that really interrupts the flow of gameplay, just stand up with this kind of comical chair screeching sound and then have to sit back down again, which was really funny, but also really interrupted the flow of gameplay. So that's an excellent change I'm really happy with. It's very easy to leave the table if you want to, because there's a button in the top right hand corner as well. Fixed issues where the record player would continue playing music after an in-game room reset. I was quite tenacious with trying to track down weird bugs. Maybe I can play some on the screen right now, actually. I was able to get some pretty weird situations to happen by just kind of following my gamer instincts of how to break stuff. But I actually did not see this particular bug. It didn't occur to me to try and play a record and then reset the game. Fixed issues where a knocked down miniature would offset from its original position after being lifted up. I don't think I have any footage of this happening, but I can very easily imagine how it would, because when you knock down a miniature, it kind of flips itself over and lands on its side or front or whatever. And then when you press K on it again, it sits back up to where it was previously. But I can completely imagine how it would get up and just land in the wrong space, because it's a 3D engine, so it's very easy for things to not align properly to the grid when you're manipulating them like that. Fixed issue where picking up multiple dice with the 1 to 9 keys would also pick up archived dice. I didn't know about the pressing the 1 to 9 key shortcut to pick up dice, but now I do know about it thanks to this change log, and I'm very pleased that I know that, because it's really handy. Fixed issues resulting in item duplication. I was able to get some items to be duplicated, not intentionally, but by accident, by just kind of being a bit rough with the game and trying to take stuff out of boxes and put it back in and do things that I thought might break it. It's a bit strange the way that the game works in the sense that there's one of every card that there should be in the box, if you like. I mean, when there should be more than one card, there's more than one. But what I'm saying is there's no way to just generate a new copy of an item. So if it gets accidentally deleted, like I mentioned earlier on, it is gone until you reset the whole room. And similarly, sometimes items could be duplicated in a way where you end up with two of the same card. So I'll probably put some footage underneath this of me doing that with, I think it was the Rawhide Armor card I was able to get to duplicate kind of by accident. But I'm really glad to see that being fixed, because all those need to be nailed down before the game can be played as if it was the real life Kingdom Death using the simulator. It's so close, like I said, but those are really important ones to fix. And me, and I'm sure lots of other people, are emailing whenever we find issues like that. Minor graphics glitches in macOS builds. I'm curious about this because I've only played the game on macOS. I play it on my MacBook Air, and so far in this new patch, I've noticed some changes. For example, there's now a vignette kind of effect, which has only started appearing since this patch, so I don't know if it was a glitch that it wasn't appearing previously. I'm not sure. In general, the graphics stability of the game has been very, very good, apart from in one situation where I was able to get a kind of texture not found placeholder texture to appear by breaking something. Maybe I can show that as well. And finally, further optimized graphics and performance in both the main menu and the in-game scene. I haven't tried turning the graphics back up to ultra or high, but I run the game on medium and it runs really well, not choppy enough to be a problem, even on my tiny laptop. So I'm very happy with the optimization of the game. So next I'd like to talk about how close Kingdom Death Simulator is currently to being usable as your main way to play Kingdom Death if you were going to do a whole campaign. And I think the answer to that is very nearly. So right now I've had to start my campaign over several times, pretty much once on each patch that's come out. And that's because there's either been problems that have caused me to have to reset the room completely, like disappearing cards and things like that, or there's been a patch that's wiped out the existing state of my room. I think if you really wanted to, you could play a campaign right now just by recording everything on either like physical real life record sheets, or maybe using an app or something to track the contents of all of your survivor sheets and your settlement sheet. I kind of can't stress enough though that it's very, very close. There's really only a couple of small bugs that are still sort of gameplay affecting in really minor ways, and then one more major issue which I'm almost certain will be ironed out in the next patch or two. So one of the smaller issues is visible card shuffling. This used to happen on the first release of the game more consistently, but now it only seems to really happen when things are on the AI discard slot or the hit locations discard slot of the monster organizer area. So what this looks like, as you can probably see behind what I'm saying, is that sometimes you'll shuffle a deck, and even though the cards are facing down, you'll be able to see the cards kind of face up within the pile. One thing that I thought was still a bug, but I've actually realized can be worked around quite easily, is that when you press the E button to pick up a card, it flips the card over, and so when you're doing a wound to a monster, it makes it hard not to see the cards that you're taking out of its deck, as you can see here. But the workaround that I found for this is that you can just press the 1 button on your keyboard, and that shortcut will take the first card off the top of a deck without flipping it over, so that solves that problem completely. The more severe problem, and really the only thing that makes it hard to run a whole campaign in the simulator at the moment, is that cards can enter the ghost state that I mentioned earlier on and potentially leave the instance completely, which you need them not to for the game to be able to continue for more than one lantern year. And in particular, the one instance where I'm finding that still happens on the current patch is that when you leave the dwelling after playing a session and then come back in again, you'll find that a lot of your cards that are from decks that you've manipulated, like for example the gear card decks or the AI decks, will all end up in this archive box, and then from then on they behave in this kind of unpredictable way. I'm pretty sure that the developers will be able to fix this quickly because I've been sending them some footage and helping them to figure out why it happens. And that leads me on to the last thing I'd like to talk about, which is that I'm just really appreciative of the developers and how responsive they've been for me personally when I've reached out to them to ask them to reset my instance or to show them a bug that I've been experiencing. Also, I've pointed out some small user experience type things, like it being very easy to accidentally flip the hunt board after you've just spent a few minutes setting it up. And they've fixed those things immediately in the next patch. And that's kind of the thing that I want everyone to know. If you haven't already bought a key, or if you bought a regular key but not a master key, I really think that at the rate that this is going, the simulator is going to be really good. It's going to be the best way to play Kingdom Death easily with people if you can't get in a room with them. And yeah, I'm just really excited about where it's going to go. I also need to address a small elephant in the room, which is that we got a shout out in the Kingdom Death update newsletter, and I have no idea what to say about this. It's just a gigantic honor. all of my friends in real life always tease me because I'm such a Poots fangirl and I'm always going on about how great Kingdom Death is. So yeah, it feels like kind of a bucket list achievement to have been on that newsletter. If I can be honest with you for a second, I've actually been finding it a little tough over the last couple of weeks because I never expected to get any kind of views on my videos. And even though I know it's nothing to do with me, it's just that I happen to be the person showing people the simulator and just be the first person to make a video about it. Having so many people see those videos kind of makes it hard to follow up, and I've been kind of casting around trying to figure out what I should do next. I know I want to make videos like this where I talk about patch notes and talk about how the simulator evolves over time, but I'm struggling a little bit to find my voice and also to find time to do editing because it takes a lot longer than I realized when I made my first video to actually put something more organized together. I think I just need to make peace with the fact that my videos are going to be a bit kind of long and rambly, and hopefully you find them at least, I don't know, relaxing or something, and you don't mind too much that they tend to run a little long. I am really excited to try different kinds of videos. Someone in the comments asked me to do some physical Kingdom Death stuff, and I have just so much physical Kingdom Death stuff that I would really like an excuse to be able to get out and show people. So I'll maybe do an experiment with that next. I have a new box of Kingdom Death stuff that I just bought that I haven't opened yet, so maybe that'll be a good start. Also, this is kind of a longer term dream, but I would really like to try and expose Kingdom Death to a wider audience. When I first played Kingdom Death with my real life group of friends, who are 3 other women who like board games but had never heard of Kingdom Death before, I found it really fun to kind of story tell the game to them and let it be kind of like a choose your own adventure for them. And we actually ended up making it all the way through to the Watcher and dying to the Watcher, which was really great for our first ever campaign. So maybe I can channel that energy and expose Kingdom Death to a wider audience one day. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.